Hello everybody, how we all doing? Welcome back to the channel, Off The Underside. We've got another brilliant guest tonight, really exciting one for us. We've got a current manager, which I'm really excited about. Ex-player, he played for Partick Thistle, Falkirk and Hamilton. And like I say, current manager of Caledonian Braves. It's Mr. Ricky Waddell. How you doing, Ricky?
I'm all right, Jamie. Thank you. Yep. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Appreciate it.
No bother, it's a pleasure to talk to you, man. Aye, really excited about this one because, like I say, mate, I mean, we did talk to quite a few ex-players and that, but I'm really excited to hear about this season and stuff because looking at the table earlier on, mate, you're currently sitting fourth in the table, 9 points behind leaders Clydebank. How do you feel this season's faring for you so far?
It's a funny one because last year, when we it's part of a bigger story, but we put a kind of project together for a couple of years in order to really try and challenge for the league. And last year we were on top of the league for a good spell of the season, and we did, in fairness, have a couple of games in hand on other teams, so it didn't tell the full story. We ended up finishing third, which was our highest place in the league since we were in it, since we got promoted, however many years ago that was. But so this season, it's kind of gave us a real good expectations to go and try and challenge. So I felt the first sort of phase, the first 11, 12 games, we were okay. We didn't pick up as many points. I think we were 18 out of 34 or something like that points in the first third of the season. Second third, we've been a lot better. We've picked up some good victories, and Clydebank's been the team that's been leading the way, guys, as you probably can see. Clydebank, really, really good historic club, good players, fantastic support level, different to what we've got. We're a kind of new team in Scottish football. Not everybody understands us, but I have been happy with it so far. And my main thing was to get to the Celtic B game, which was just Saturday there, and be in and amongst it close enough to say, right, okay, in the last 12 games, can we really go and put in a challenge? So I've been happy enough to put, what football's like, lads, it's ups, it's downs, try not to get too carried away, but I kind of pinpointed this point in the season to say, right, okay, I hope we're close enough that we can go and really put in a challenge to the league this year. So yeah, overall, relatively pleased.
I definitely.
I was just going to say that was an excellent victory on Saturday, mate. 4-3 against Celtic B team. So it really is a bit of a statement victory, to be honest with you. I mean, I do feel. Do you feel that you can actually go and challenge for the league now?
Well, I think so. I mean, like you said, I think if we'd lost on Saturday there, we're probably thinking, it'd put us probably 12 points behind Clydebank, 12 games to go. It's a tough ask, but I think what's happened to the league this year, East Kilbride kind of ended up running away with it last year, albeit we beat them twice last year, but in fairness, they won the league and more than deserved that. But this year, there's been some different results. So, the top 6 teams have taken points off each other, and more or less everybody's got each other to play. Our last 3 games, for example, are Bonnyrigg, Tranent and Clydebank on our last game. So if we can be there and there amongst it at that point, then I'll be really happy. It'll give ourselves a good opportunity. But you know what it's like, guys. It's not always as easy as that. Injuries play a part and a bit of momentum. But Celtic be on Saturday, we were not 1-0 down. We went 2-1 up. I have to admit, we didn't play that well in the first half, but we managed to get ourselves together and we played a bit better in the second half. We ended up going 3-2 down, got it back to 3-3 and ended up 4-3. And the B teams, they're very young. Obviously, Hearts and Celtic, Rangers used to have a B team in our league who were actually very good at the time. They offer a different way of playing against, so it gives you different challenges. So I'm glad to get that one over the road. Over the line rather, and get the 3 points in the end up.
You weren't the only team to have a bad first half on Saturday.
I didn't see it, David, but I heard all about it. But that's it. That's football in a nutshell. And Danny Rose went in there and went about his business quite pragmatically. And didn't panic too much, and maybe on another day Celtic could have been. I watched the highlights when I came in, but Celtic could have been well up in the first half. But it's football; it's about the end result, isn't it?
Aye.
I was just going to ask, like, obviously you're talking about momentum and injuries and stuff like that. Is it a lot harder, especially because it's I imagine it's a part-time club, aye?
Aye, we've got guys who come in, they call it these days a kind of hybrid training. So basically it's a hybrid between full-time and part-time. But the majority of my group's part-time, Tuesday, Thursday nights playing a Saturday. And then I've got another group of boys who are maybe came from academy football, came from full-time environments. And I always felt that I like to work with that type of player because they want to work hard, they want to train more. So getting their boys in on a Monday, Friday morning, in addition to the Tuesday, Thursday night, I felt could always make the difference between, getting ourselves, up the top of that league rather than paying, you probably know the lower league. It's went a bit. All the lower leagues have went a bit crazy with finances. So we needed to find the edge in terms of my recruitment, and for me to do that, we wanted to put in a bigger, better training regime. But injuries do. It's like everybody. It's an excuse, right, for no winning games at the end of the day. But at the same time, it can be a valid excuse because it's part of the game. But as a manager, that's what you need to deal with. You need to find a way to somehow get your team going and make them believe that they're going to win the game and get the 3 points over the line. And that's the ultimate challenge at the end of the day.
Definitely, mate. We'll go back to your managerial career later on, mate. But we like to go back to the very start on this podcast, mate. Obviously, you were a professional football player. What's your earliest memories of playing football?
Oh, I mean, it's just like most football players, or anybody who played football, just from very, very young. But it was a bit more like back in I'm 45, so I grew up 80s, 90s. It was, go and play with a local team. There was none of this, like my kids are in there, they're getting run up to football later on, they're getting carried about everywhere. It was, just go. It was a bit more natural. I used to go up to the school when I was like the local primary school and just kick a ball against the wall. It was as simple as that. I would say that's probably my earliest memory, just going up to the local school, which we lived close by, and taking a ball, and you had a brick wall facing you, and just scalping the ball against the wall. It was as simple as that. But I actually didn't go to games really. My mum and dad didn't take me to games. My local club was Falkirk. I eventually went to a game maybe when I was about 11 or 12. But before that, not really. But it was just loving football, just that early passion for literally just the football itself, and just how it feels, and how it pings against the wall, and just that, a bit romantic, but just that's what got me excited about playing football early days.
Wouldn't even be allowed to do that anymore, man. We talk about this on the podcast quite a bit, where you're saying kicking a ball off a wall. The Poles would be fun now.
Yeah, funny, because I was speaking to my youngest boy, Ruben, and he was saying, I think it was Tuesday, and it was a beautiful day, and it was really cold, as you know. And I said to him, "Oh, did you get out at playtime?" And he was like, "No, I didn't get out." And I was like, "How did you not get out at playtime?" And he said, "Well, the school didn't let us out because it was too cold and too icy." And I said, "What, did the janitor or whoever not get the playground?" And he said, "Well, yeah, it was all salted." So it got me talking to him, and I said, "Here, my day, they just used to let you out and play. And what I used to do, and all my pals used to, just bring your own ball. You'll remember it. You used to bring your own ball to school, stick it in your bag." And he said, "Well, we're not allowed to do that anymore." And I'm like, "Well, they're all, that primate, that P5s are allowed on the pitch on that day, then P6s are allowed on the pitch on the next day, and it's all structured, and it shouldn't be like that. Football's natural. It's about football's instinctive as a young player, as an older player or a young player, and." For me, it's up to schools and everybody to encourage not just football to be playing sport more, and that just discourages it for me. And you're right what you say. There's no ball signs everywhere that you can see these days.
Definitely. It's lost art. You've seen wee guys just like you say, kicking a ball off the wall, or
Exactly.
just about a ball in general. It's all about the PlayStation or anything like that now. But I was going to just ask, who was it that brought you, like, helped you with your love of football? Was it your dad, or was it your uncle or your mum or anything?
It was both my parents really, and they just encouraged me to I was very lucky. They encouraged me just to do what I wanted to do, and I wasn't the, I was one of the best in the primary school, but at high school I wasn't one of the best. The difference was with me, I just wanted it. I loved it. I had a decent enough left foot, and you see from my career was all right. I'm trying not to, but I don't even think about my football career these days really too much. It was okay. I have regrets. I think it could have been better. But early days, it was my mum and dad, and they just encouraged me. And at Christmas, that's what you got. You get a football, and you were just encouraged. I went out in the back garden and I played with my pals, and it was a bit more natural, like we're chatting about those days. All your pals played football, and you would play with bigger kids, younger kids, older kids, the local bully and fucking everything. It was great. But I got picked up actually kicking the ball against that very wall, and it was a guy who used to walk his dog every day, and I didn't know him. He was a local in the village where I grew up, and he came down with his dog one time, and he says, "I see you kicking that ball, after school every day." And by the way, I was about 15 or 16. I wasn't a baby, I wasn't like 9-year-old or whatever. And because I didn't get picked up early for my pro team, although at that point there wasn't really pro youth teams. You used to go in and train with teams who would pick you up, and I'd done that a few times, but nothing was ever solid. So he says, "Look, I've got a connection in at Stennismuir. Would you like to go and play with their team?" And I was only 15 at the time, and I said, "Right, okay." I said, "But actually," and I was playing boys club in the Grangemouth area, and another kind of weird story, and the guy who kind of picked me up initially, I used to go down and watch the local junior team, and one day they were struggling for numbers, and they said, "Look, could you go and play and just go on the bench for us? We might not use you, but would you go on the bench?" So I said, I'll go on the bench. And like I said, I was 15. I probably wouldn't be allowed to do that anymore because it was men's football. And they put me down as a ringer, I suppose. They didn't register me or nothing. And I came on the park and missed a sitter, and then scored 2 goals, and that was it. And I remember being in the changing room and that smell and all on the men, fucking grizzly backside men, and I'm like, what's going on here? But that was it. And then I signed for Stennismuir at 15, 16 for their under-19s and kind of played reserves early days, and that was the kind of start of my journey on getting involved into some level of professional football at the time.
So then you did end up playing for your local club, Falkirk, mate. How did that move come about there?
Yeah, well, I know he's actually kit man at Stirling Albion, a guy called Ian McIntyre, and every time he sees me, he says he calls me a CUNT, and he says he was the head of youth at the time. He was the head of youth at Falkirk, and he says you cost me. I think it was. He keeps telling me it cost Falkirk £500 and a bag of footballs. Yeah, CUNT, and to go from Stennismuir to Falkirk. And I played a couple of trial games, and Stennismuir were brilliant. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but they let me go. They were happy enough with that, I believe, and they let me go and play a couple of games with Falkirk and with our under-16s at the time it was, and a couple of games with the reserves. And I seem to have obviously caught the eye, and I just wanted it, guys. I just wanted it more than anybody. It was my dream. It was my life. There was better players than me right the way through. Every club I played at, there was better players than me, and I just. I'm not saying I was a great player. I just ground it out. I worked hard at my game. I wanted it. I felt I had some good quality, and then end up carved out some sort of career out of it. But yeah, that's where I ended up there, and it was Alec Totten, if you remember him, ex-Kilmarnock, St John's Kilmarnock, and Falkirk manager who gave me my chance.
See, as a young player at that time in Scotland, what were the biggest obstacles that you could face that obviously we wouldn't really notice, if you know what I mean?
The obstacles at that time was, I suppose, getting noticed, because these days, as pro teams have scouts everywhere. I had to try and carve it out myself. I got lucky with the guy Alan, who saw me in the park, and then I remember writing to teams, a handwritten writing to teams down south and teams up here, and Cowdenbeath on the back of that. Cowdenbeath said, I got your letter, I'll come and watch you. And it was a guy called Gary Kirk. He's actually passed away. He was working with Hearts, and he was one of Craig Levine's backroom staff for a long time. And he was brilliant with me. He brought me into Cowdenbeath, and it was while Craig Levine was a manager, actually. And I trained a bit there, and just then the Falkirk thing came up. But I suppose it's similar to now, where you're up against your peers. You're up against trying to get through. I mean, when I joined Falkirk, there was about 16 other. It was the old YTS scheme, the apprenticeship. But they looked after you. They were hard on you, really, really hard on you. But fair, but always fair. The guy who managed us was a guy called Walter Kidd, and the ex-Hearts fullback, but hard as nails. Really, really hard as nails. I remember one time in training, I tried to nutmeg him, or I did nutmeg him. He didn't say a thing. Next time I got the ball, he literally just took me out. And he says, "Don't ever do that to me again." Of course, I tried it again. You know what I mean? That bit of cheek, that wee bit of gallousness is what you need, I think, to come through. But always challenges right the way through. You always doubt yourself as well. You're always thinking there's players better than you. But sometimes that self-doubt and that maybe insecurity is the thing that drives you forward. And they end up that fear of losing a game, that fear of not doing well. That if that's in you, that's sometimes the thing that makes you, be relatively successful.
You mentioned earlier, mate, and I've seen you talking about this on another podcast as well, and I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier about players maybe around about you who were possibly potentially more talented or whatever, but you wanted it more and you were more driven and stuff. Although I think you're probably doing yourself a disservice there, mate. I think you were a really, really good player. But, I mean, where did that come from? Because I seen you, like I say, on the other podcast, you were talking about how, other boys and that would maybe go out partying, thinking of women and drinking and all that stuff, whereas you were completely focused. Where did that come from? Is that something that's passed down for your family or whatever?
Aye, I mean, I went out with my pals and things like that, but it was never craziness, It was no full blown stuff. I always if I had a game, I've still got a bit. I've definitely got a bit of that in me. Still, I'm a bit more laid back now, but I just wanted it. Every Saturday I would have Clyde One Super Scoreboard on, and it was a guy, Paul Cooney, I think he's at Go Radio now, and I used to have that on the background. My games for my boys club team were on the Sunday, and I used to put it, put it on the windowsill in the back garden, turn it up full blast, and just envisage and visualise me being one of those players that are on the radio. And I used to run out the back garden and that type of thing. And I was about 14 at that time, you know what I mean? I wasn't a young kid, but I remember going to high school and people were getting into drugs, getting into drink and getting into lassies and things like that. And that was fine, but I was quite shy and just quiet. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what I wanted to try and give it a chance. And even I left school as well. I'd left school with a job, and I said, just at the start of 5th year, and I went around, had to go around all the teachers to sign off whatever form it was. And they said, look, you shouldn't believe you've not got a job. And I said, look, I want to be a football player. And they're like, look, it's going to be difficult. You're a good player. I was like the school captain and this and that. But, you've not been picked up. Just stay at school till you get that. My mum and dad never flinched. My dad actually eventually got me a job as an electrician. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. I need to give this a go. Because I knew I had some sort of ability. I knew I had, relative to boys who were getting into clubs. And I thought, I'm no far away for that. And that, I always think, you look at some of the best players, probably Scotland have got, with the exception of maybe one or two, they've always been, I'm not saying second place. If you look at Andy Robertson, for example, got released for Celtic, there's always been an element of, football and hardship to drive them on. And I think that was certainly my case, because I wasn't getting picked up. And that just made me even more determined to try and make it. And it's your own ego, it's my own, call it what, personality, to say, right, I'm going to do absolutely everything. And I did. I sacrificed for years. I sacrificed for years a lot of various things. That was until I met my pal Jamie Mitchell, who you well know, right enough. You led me astray.
No, but it's funny you mentioned that though, about the hardships and that, because I don't think that we've done a podcast with an ex-player or whatever, and there's no been some sort of hardship, whether it be injury or and that's a question I might get to later on actually, but I mean, whether it be injury or a manager no fancying you, or you just not working out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think That's what I worry about young players now. I think they've got maybe too much. Everything's getting handed to them. And I see it in my own team. Got a lot of generation have changed the way they are, but there's still some brilliant kids, some brilliant players, some brilliant personalities, different to when we were young. But still some great opportunities and great potential for these young guys who are coming through just now. But yeah, those hardships were right the way through till I finished at 33, whatever it was, when I finished in America. And it's football's a working class guy or woman these days, but in that time it was mainly a working class man's sport. You had to dig deep. You had to, when you were an apprentice, you had to go and build goals. You had to go and pick up litter for the stadium, and that gave you that sense of grounding. And that not everybody could cope with that. But like I say, what I always used to say to us, look, this is your grounding. If you do well at this, you'll get an opportunity, and I trusted his word on that. But you look at some of the best that are playing at the top level. There's hardship. Some of them have, some of the Brazilians, Argentinians, they've had the African players have had hardships through their early lives, and they've had to sacrifice a lot. And I think that counts for something. So it gives you something inside, that hunger to say, and it's almost an insecurity to say, do you know what? I'm no standing for that. I know what it's like to not have too much. I know what it's like to be rejected. I know what it's like to be released. So I don't want that to happen. So that's a driver for you, eventually.
Do you think?
Since we're talking about this, sorry, Corey, 2 seconds. Okay. Since we're talking about this, though, I may as well ask this question now. Like, we spoke to Mikey Doyle on here, mate, who's the captain of Cove Rangers, right? And it's always stuck with me, this story about how throughout his career, right, he goes to like different clubs and that, and he's doing really, really well or whatever, and then the manager either moves on to a new club or gets sacked or whatever, somebody else comes in, and it's like constant, right, I don't really, if he's not my player, I want to bring my own players in, sort of thing. Obviously, I know that you've really been at Caledonian Braves for a while, mate, but like, do you agree with that? Like, if a manager goes into a club, do you not think he should be assessing the whole squad and, instead of just going, you know what, I don't fancy him, I'm going to bring my own players in? You know what I mean? And I know you've had that through your career as well, because when you were at certain clubs and that, a manager would come in and go, right, I'm going to pick my own players, sort of thing. And I don't know, it kind of bothers me when I hear they kind of stories.
I agree. I mean, I always think there's some really, really good players in Scottish football. But it comes down to I don't like to use this word, really, it comes down to the culture of what football is in Scotland, really. And it's a high on fire culture, and it's cutthroat, and it's results driven, and it's media driven, and it's supporter driven, which is fine. I love Scottish football. I think it's the best. I would watch Scottish football before I would watch anything else. Absolutely. But to try and answer your question, I mean, Ian McCall, Alex Totten was my first manager. I was with Alex Totten for 4 years, played in the first team, gave him my chance from nowhere, took my chance, which is important. And Ian McCall came in, and luckily enough, I was heading to Partick, but he had other ideas, but I was going to Partick anyway, so it worked out quite well. Partick with John Lambie and in the Premier League at the time, and Lambie was brilliant. But in terms of being a manager now, I agree with you. I think you've got to work with the players that you've got. One of the key attributes, and no, everybody agrees with me, as a manager and coach, has to be adaptable. Absolutely has to be adaptable. Football's about players. It's as simple as that. It's about players, and you got to be adaptable to those players that are at your disposal. That's not to say that you want to evolve your own group. You want to bring in your own group, your guys who you can trust, your personalities that you want to create the working environment within your team. But yeah, I mean, it is all too easy. It's a commodity thing. It's a business thing. Some people look at it like that, to say, right, okay, we've got this group of players. I don't fancy you. I know you for this, that, and the next thing, and then you're out. Happened to me. That's for absolute certain. Probably, unfortunately, maybe unfairly, but it does, and it can put a dent in players' careers, players' minds. It certainly did with my own, and you'll see that with the amount of teams that I'd played for through the years.
Lowly footballer, like, you often get like short-term 1 or 2 year contracts or constant uncertainty. How did that affect you, like mentally? Did that ever
As a player,
come up?
I found it really difficult, Corey. I mean, the probably the longest I had was 2.5 years of a deal, and no huge money, like nothing like that, and just a working wage, which is fine. I'm not embarrassed to say that. But looking back, you're in your 20s, and when you look back in your 20s, your head's sometimes full of broken bottles. I never had any guidance. I didn't go with an agent. I wasn't bothered with that. I had an agent at the start, and then it just didn't really work out. I preferred just to do my own thing. I didn't really have any guidance, but so it might have been different if I had somebody to guide me properly. But yeah, it was mainly 1-year contracts, and in the end I was kind of annoyed with it, and I got moved out of Hamilton pretty rapidly for not too much reason. Really, I was like, after playing all the games in the championship, the old first division at the time, and just in January I got told, right, that's you, you're done, you're out. If I had proper guidance, I would have probably changed my career, because I would have just sat and dealt with it. I ended up going up to Falkirk because I thought, right, I'm just going to go up there and play, and I ended up making a decision on the back of that to go to South Asia, where it just an opportunity came out of the blue to go and play full time over there, which was amazing. But I kind of thought, well, do you know what? If football's not going to work for me in Scotland, I'm going to try and make it work elsewhere, and ended up going abroad, which was great. But mentally, it's tough. It's tough in your 20s, and you're trying to get your career together. You're trying to get your life together. It's hard to. I had a girlfriend at the time. I've got kids now. I've got a wife now, but that didn't come till later on in my late 20s, when things were a bit more stable. But I suppose you look back, and I'm saying I wouldn't change things, but there's things I would have liked to change, definitely. But it's hard for players. Scottish football's such a cliff edge. If you come out, for example, Wraith Rovers, if you get released from Wraith Rovers, Partick Thistle, teams in that first division, that championship, where do you go next? You're probably looking at maybe getting another club, potentially, maybe a Queen of the South that's still full time, an Airdrie who's maybe down the bottom level of the championship, or you might be looking at part-time football, which impacts your life. So those players are on that cliff edge, and that's hard to deal with mentally, I would say, Corey.
Especially at such a young age, like you're saying, that's a mental thing. I couldn't even think about going through that in my early 20s.
Yeah. I mean, before that, before you're 20 and you come, even in first team football, you're probably, certainly with myself, I was just, money wasn't as big a thing. I was still, most kids are still living with their parents at that point. So you don't really think that way. It's not until you start to move on with your life and you see your mates, they're joiners, they're, working construction, they're doing different jobs, and, they're doing all right. They've got stability. Football doesn't offer you that unless you're that maybe 1 or 2% that go and make it to the top level, who give you a financial, financial backing. But even at that, you've seen players who reach the very top and they end up falling down the leagues and they get themselves into bother and whatnot. So there's nothing guaranteed. So that's the challenge. But it's the challenge with any performance related job, I would say.
You mentioned that you went to Asia, mate. I mean, obviously that's a bold move at that point, 2006. Was that a tough decision, and how did you find your time out there?
It wasn't a tough decision. It was through an Aussie pal who I played with, Hamilton Academical, and his agent was, if you remember, Big Dave McPherson, ex-Rangers Hearts player. Big Dave McPherson phoned me up and he said, look, there's an opportunity. The manager over there is an English guy called Trevor Morgan, who was brilliant. He'd like to kind of bring you over. I think he's seen a couple of videos of me at that time. It was VHS. And I thought, I'm going to jump at this chance, because I'd went to Forfar. I thought, stupidly, I'll go to Forfar. I'll better let league player than League One, and I'll come back up. But it doesn't work that way. Unless you're a brilliant keeper or a goal-scoring striker, it's very hard to get noticed down the lower leagues. I was a wide player. I was a midfielder type, kind of versatile. So it's very hard to get noticed and get yourself back up. So making that move was relatively easy. I had a house a flat in the town with my girlfriend at the time. I didn't have any kids or that. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. She stayed in Glasgow, and I went there, and we ended up splitting up. But it was the right thing to do for my own career, and it kind of revitalised me because it made me realise there's more to just the goldfish bowl of Scottish football, and the level was better than people would expect. It was Singapore. Singapore's an unbelievable city. It's not a big city, but it's like 50 mile wide, 50 mile long, so you can get about it. And it was just a different culture of football as well. And you got the opportunity to play teams who were maybe in the Asian Champions League, that type of thing. So Singapore, being a country in its own right, would have one representative that would go and play in the Champions League over there. So you're playing against half decent players. It would probably be level with the Championship over here at that point.
It's just reminded me there, but when you were talking about being noticed in that, I mean, and obviously earlier on you spoke about Paul Cooney, and that's how I came across your name a lot of the time back in the day, mate. It was on Clyde One, you know what I mean? And you say that you were always creating goals, scoring goals, and that as well, man. So it just came in me there when you were talking about that. The name Ricky Waddell was never over.
Yeah. Oh, you're putting that on CV, right?
No, it's true though. It's true.
I just thought you were showing your age by saying VHS. I'm laughing.
Sorry, don't know what that is.
Yeah, I know. I'm a DVD generation.
But you came back to Ayr pretty quickly, mate. After a year, what brought you back?
The footballing season went from January to December. Well, the pre-season started in January, didn't start till March, the actual season. So I thought I'm going to come back, see my family and things. And I got the chance to go down to Ayr. Robert Connor and Rob Riley were the management team in there, and they were good. And Ayr were struggling a little bit at the time, and I really enjoyed my time at Ayr. Ayer's a big club, as you know, like a kind of sleeping giant, and they had a decent fan base. I had some good players in there. So Ryan Stevenson was playing there at the time. Andy McLaren was playing at Ayr at the time. So we kind of dug away, and the two managers I spoke about, Robert Connor gets sacked after a couple of weeks. But Brian Reid took over, and he done quite well. And I had a really good spell actually under him. And then, so it was like 3 managers within 5 months. Neil Watt and Stuart Miller took over, and they didn't fancy me at all, and just said, look, there's not going to be a place for you. And I said, look, I'm just going to keep training, because I was thinking about trying to go back to Asia. And I just kept training away, and I thought, I'll just kind of keep cracking on here, just show a good attitude. And in fairness, a couple of years after that, Stuart Miller eventually said, look, it was a mistake to let you go, and I re-signed for him at Clyde, and I respect him for that, because he didn't need to do that. At that particular point, he could have went with his initial judgment, which I always felt was a bit harsh and wrong, but it is what it was, and ended up signing with Airdrie after that move.
How was your time at Airdrie? Because you went there, we went to Clyde and went back, so I imagine it was good times.
Good. It was through Kenny Black. Kenny Black was the manager, if you remember Kenny Black, and he was great. We had a really good side. But glad Alan Russell, who was a striker at the time, had a couple of decent players, but a really good football inside. Nah, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed my football at that point. It kind of coincided with me saying, right, you know what, I'm going to do something else with my life. Because obviously you finish relatively early when you're playing full-time football. So I went and done a kind of personal training diploma, and started to kind of trying to do that, and started to do a little bit of work in the gym. So I was starting to think outside the box to make sure I was financially all right, because, like you were saying, I went for Hamilton for Singapore, Ayr United to Airdrie in about probably 2 years. So I thought I can't continue like that. And then I had a really good season at Airdrie, really good season. That was purely down to Kenny Black and Jimmy Boyle and the rest of the players there. I thought that we had a right good side. We missed out on promotion that year. And then John Brown signed me with Clyde, and we had a year there. I had signed 2 years, but they almost went down the tubes. The financial backer pulled out. Again, that team was good. Stuart Kettlewell, Alan Totten was in that team. Willie McLaren with a right good side. Big Chris Higgins at the back, Alan Lithgow. some of they guys, if you know any of they boys. So we had a good side. We just probably underperformed a bit under Bomber that year. And we struggled, and then the financial bit came in, and we all got our contracts ripped up. So that was another dilemma at the time, you know.
How was Bomber as a manager?
Big-hearted. I enjoyed him. What wasn't I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but wasn't a coach. Used to play 3-5-2. I was playing a wing back at that time. Didn't really coach us very much. When I look back, was trying to give us the responsibility to figure it out. I would say we probably needed a bit more guidance at the time. He's used to playing with Rangers, big personality, top player, good guy. I have to say I'd met him since, just when I was up at Rangers Academy coaching, and he was doing his bit for the ambassador role he was doing at the time. And so I've only got good things to say about him. But some crazy things. He used to take us up the boxing gym. Up at East Kilbride, the guy James Keenon's up there. We had the sparring, and boys were getting cut eyes and everything, and all sorts of stuff. But brilliant, you know, just like it wouldn't be allowed these days. It wouldn't happen. But
it's a good bonding session.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm not the best boxer either, by the way. There was a couple of boys who were into it who were good, and I remember one boy got a cut eye. You know, it was like a minute sparring session. One boy took it too far, and you know, scalped the other boy's eye, and all opened up. I think he missed the Saturday. We were due to play Dunfermline. I think it was on the Saturday. He missed the game because we were boxing on the Wednesday afternoon. You know, just madness, mad stuff.
Let's explain that one. What happened there? Oh, it was a wee sparring session with the boys. Don't worry about it. Big catch. I know.
But you wouldn't mess with John Brown, that's for sure.
I was going to say, I thought there was going to be more scary stories there.
Listen, he nearly took me off one time. He went right through me at half time for wearing a long sleeve. In fact, it was against Dunfermline. I was the only player wearing a long sleeve shirt, you know, like plain shirt, strip. And he hammered me at half time. It was 0-0 against Dunfermline. And he said, I'm going to bring you off. I was like, all right, okay, why am I doing all right? He says, because you're wearing a long sleeve shirt. I was like, all right, it was Mags who gave me it, you know, Mags, the one, you know. It was mental.
That is proper old school, isn't it, man? Don't even want to see a long sleeve shirt, man. Crazy. I want to go back to your time at Partick Thistle, because you said you played in the Premier League there with guys like Jamie Mitchell and stuff like that. John Lambie was the manager. But how did you find that experience playing at the top level?
It was amazing. Again, I went in with my eyes open, and I was like, right, I'm going to take this opportunity, take this chance. And I felt I really did. And I played. I got the Young Player of the Year on my first year, and at Thistle. And John Lambie was brilliant, you know, and you hear all the stories about him. But he was a lot certainly calmer at that point, but it was great, you know. And he looked after his players. Sometimes he would leave me out, you know, even the squad. But he would, you know, he would give me the bonus. If I was working hard and I was doing well, he would give me my appearance money. He would give me my bonus, even if I didn't appear in the game on the Saturday. But he gave me my chance. My first game was at Aberdeen at Pittodrie. And he just kind of, again, just said, look, we played a 3-4-3. It wasn't a big Wilfred's 3-4-3 right enough at the time. It was a bit more like a 5-4-1. But he gave him a chance. I had a good game. He won that game 1-0, and that was me on my way. And I had a really good season. I don't know, you know, I made decent appearances that year. A lot of the time it was off the subs bench, scored a few goals. But yeah, it was great. Partick's a brilliant club, really brilliant club. I didn't even realise it at that time. Different to what Falkirk was. I would say there was more expectation at Falkirk. The Falkirk fans, you know, think, you know, they want you to win in absolutely every game. Doesn't matter who you're playing against. Partick was a wee bit more laid back, a bit more easy going. But you know, a really good club, good support. I always felt supported there. You know, if I was out, you know, in Glasgow, people would come up to you and they would only have good things to say generally, regardless of what was going on. So that was a good time in my footballing career, definitely.
And when you went to Clyde later on, mate, I'm assuming you didn't get the pelters that me and Jamie did, making it the opposite way.
I got the absolute pelters. I get the pelters, and for every set of fans actually. Like when I played the Clyde, also I was on the left, and on the home when I was running up down the home side, they would give me a fair bit of stick. But it was all just banter, really. Just get on it. But they were quite supportive as well, to be fair, on both my spells. So, but there was a kind of hatred for each other, probably more so at that time because they were playing more games against each other. But it was all good fun.
Well, mate, Partick, Hamilton, Airdrie, Cumbernauld, and then it all ends in LA. How did that one come about, mate? How did that happen?
Well, that came about with Big Alan Russell. Actually, it was one Christmas I was out in the town. Actually, a few beers in the town, and Alan Russell, if you remember, Alan played with Kilmarnock. He was the striker coach with the English national team, and I think he's down at Norwich now. Good big guy. I played with him at Airdrie. He phoned me up anyway. I was on a night out, and he said, look, I'm in America. He was playing with a team called Carolina Railhawks, and he said, I'm moving to Los Angeles. And I was like, all right. He said, do you want to come? I'm like, do you want to come to Los Angeles? Is that what you're asking? And at that time I'd settled down a wee bit, and I was with my wife, and we had a boy at the time. So I was like, so I remember coming home and I said to my wife, Andrea, I said, look, just so you know that it looks like I'm going to go to Los Angeles, by the way. And we were like, what? And we just kind of made it work. We just both said, look, let's try it for a year, see how it goes. And Leon was young enough to be able to travel over fairly regularly. And it was an unbelievable experience. But I was starting my coaching at that point, my coaching seriously. So I always had it in my mind that, maybe there's an opportunity over there to coach, but I always had it in my mind to go and, go and play for a final year or two, and then come back and really get stuck into my coaching. But Los Angeles was great city, unbelievable weather, as you know. But we travelled a lot, flew over to the East Coast to play a lot of games. A lot of the teams in that league in the USL were on the East Coast, so great just to see different places, Richmond, Pittsburgh, Orlando, these types of places. No Disney, right enough, didn't see that. So that was another good footballing experience, one that I never ever regretted to do. But I was happy with my decision to stop after that and really knuckle down in my coaching life,
So there was no kind of, it must have hurt to actually stop playing though. I think it hurts a lot of people, doesn't it?
Aye, but I have to admit, I feel I'm a better coach than I was a player, and I feel more passionate. Not in the early days, certainly, but the rigour of, training every day and, being a professional player, I'm not saying it takes its toll, but, you kind of get used to it, and you're thinking, you don't earn enough money to say, right, okay, I'm going to sit back and, I'm going to live in Dubai or something like that. No guys at my level anyway. So I was like, right, I need to really think about what's next. And I'd already been coaching for about 4 or 5 years prior to that. So I knew my mind was very much getting into coaching. I thought I'm going to try and finish early and take those steps towards coaching and see if I can carve out a career doing that within the game,
See, the coaching thing, or was that something that came just the last few years of your career, knowing that it was going to come to an end, or was that something that you had in your mind for a young age?
I probably had it in my mind from about 25, and I started just coaching kids and things like that. And it wasn't probably till I went to Queen's Park. I was a player at Clyde, and I was at Queen's Park. I didn't know it at the time. Well, I knew at the time I had a right good group, but I didn't know how much, what that group was going to end up doing. There was 3 or 4 of them made a career out of it. The ones obviously. And I took the under-17s with a couple of other coaches, and that was where I was like, right, okay, this is for me. And it kind of, I joined with my starting on the coaching pathway, getting my certificates, going through the rigor of, starting for the very start of the SFA pathway, and coaching that team, and that got my real passion. And that team, there was Lon Shanklin, there was Andy Robertson, there was Blair Spittle in that team, Aidan Connolly in that team, I think he's or he was at Wraith, he was at Dunfermline. And I just thought, these boys are really, really good. But you know what, there was other really good ones as well within that group also who maybe didn't quite make the grade, and that's the case through all my youth coaching career. But that was probably the point I thought, you know what, this is for me here. I'm really enjoying this. I can give something to players. I feel I can pass on some good experiences and learn about the art of coaching from that point on.
Did you find there was any difficulty going into that authority role from, like, I would imagine you were a wee bit more a happy chappy, a wee bit a joker and all that, but you're going into that authority role, you have to be the...
Aye, different to what I am now, but I mean, at that point there was another couple of coaches, so you're youth coaching, but do you know what, the players didn't make it hard for you in that part at all. The learning part of what you're talking about, Corey, is maybe dealing with the parents and dealing with maybe kind of issues that are surrounding, taking a youth team. But Queen's Park, again, what a fantastic club that was to work for. It really, truly was. And it was an amateur club. I volunteered 3-4 nights a week. And like I say, I've rhymed off those players. But, you always felt really supported. It was very much a family club. Very, very kind of what we call a localised club. You knew the first team manager, you knew the reserve coaches, and it was a brilliant start off for me to get that opportunity to go and coach in there. But I didn't think about it, Corey. I didn't think about that really. I just kind of worked off experiences as a player. When I look back, I kind of laugh at what I was like then as a coach, really. But you're working off your own knowledge that you build up as a player rather than the knowledge that you build up as a coach or a manager, and that kind of sees you through at that point. So you're kind of blinded a wee bit by just your own, ambition and kind of cockiness just to pass on your knowledge,
Talking about ambition, have you got ambitions to go higher as a manager, or it's just trying to get up the table and up the leagues with Caledonia?
It's hard to say, David, because the quick answer to that is yes. I would love to do it with Caledonian Braves. I would love to do it with Caledonian Braves. But like we said, the culture in Scottish football is very much a high on fire. I could go into League Two and you could get sacked after 5 games, if things don't go well for you. So you've got to get the right team. And I always thought when I came into youth football, I thought that my mindset was very much right. I need to give myself a chance. I need to learn to be a manager. I need to learn to be a coach. And you're still learning. I mean, I'm nearly 10 years in that job from the very, very start. And, 10 years or something in youth football. And you're learning all the time. And there's no way I would have been ready to go straight into a job when I finished playing. Absolutely no way. So I felt I had to learn the art of coaching and the role of being a manager. And that I'm absolutely ambitious, but I would love to do it with Braves. But you just never know in football. You just never know. But there's different pathways. Other guys that I knew kind of clung on to other successful managers when you're going through the license, and maybe became coaches for them, and kind of hung about them and learned from them, and kind of latched onto them. I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to put myself in a situation where, regardless of the level, it had to be a half decent level, but regardless of the level, I was putting myself in a situation where it was my challenge. It was me kind of calling the shots on what I was doing coaching wise, rather than maybe putting myself in a straight under fire situation. I think that's pretty criminal if you're a younger, ambitious coach.
Definitely. Ricky, we've only got a couple more questions to ask you, mate, before we let you go, man. This is the fun part of it, the fun part for you. That got a couple of questions, like I say, mate. If you had a 5-a-side team, you're the coach, of all the players you played alongside, mate, who would be in your 5-a-side team?
Off alongside, I was kicking off with Eric Cantona. I've never played with him. Preempting your question there. Goalkeeper, God. But Andy Gorham was one of my coaches at one point. I suppose I'm probably.
That'll do. You can have.
What a guy he was as well. I'll take him. So if I'm getting that, I'll take him. I need to say my wee pal Mitch, my best buddy, Jamie Mitchell. Who else? I loved as a young Falkirk player, Derek Ferguson. He was he was really bad injuries by the time he got to Falkirk, but he was a young player, and I loved Derek Ferguson. I played with him actually again at Hamilton Academical, so he wasn't that much finished, but he was such a good player, good guy as well. Helped me along. Another guy at Falkirk, two guys at Falkirk, I would say. Kevin McAllister. Do you remember Crunchy McAllister?
He was a good player, man.
What a guy! What a player! What a player! Honestly, and took me under his wing superbly. Not got many defenders in this team, by the way. We're all out attack.
All out attack, yeah.
Who else after that? God, I've been lucky to play with quite a few. Some of them at their end of their career. I played with another guy at Falkirk, Scott Crabb, who was an amazing player. Used to play with Hearts, striker, kind of number 10 type of player, but brilliant guy. Again, these were all guys that really helped me in my early career. Partick Thistle, God, I'm going to go with Stephen Cragen. We need to put a defender in there, and he was a player that I felt, had a brilliant attitude. Made the absolute most out of what he had as a player. I mean, the back three at that time was a really good back three. It was Craggs, Scotty Patterson, who was a brilliant player. I've missed out him and Derek White, if you remember Derek White, and Alan Archibald. So I could go with any one of those four as a defender in that team. But Craggs always thought, he made the absolute best out of what he had as a professional player, made it to international level, Northern Ireland international cap, and a good guy to boot,
That's a good team, mate. Gorham, Jamie Mitchell, Derek Ferguson, Kevin McAllister, and Cragen.
Yeah.
Mitch,
you see Mitch using the bench?
I say him. Next question, mate. Can you name the three players that you played alongside the most?
The three players I played alongside the most?
Yes, the three players you played alongside appearance-wise the most.
Oh, appearance-wise? Oh, God.
Right.
Probably a couple of years. Let me think. Probably Kevin McAllister was definitely one. At Partick, let me think. Hard to say. I'm remembering the team. Mitch was probably in that. I played with Mitch for a couple of years. It's a hard question to answer because I was not at a team much longer than 2 years, so there wasn't that many. And probably Alan Russell actually. My time at Airdrie, I played most games of that particular season. So did he. Me and him had a really good rapport. Thinking after that, I probably bobbed about a wee bit too many times to have that amount of appearances with other players. So those three I would say.
I'm just double checking this unless I've got to put the right player in here. Number one, it says Scott Gemmell, centre forward.
Scott Gemmell, so he was at Airdrie. I didn't know you could get this information, by the way.
Transfer market, isn't it?
Scott Gemmell. I played with him for one season. I'd probably say I would have played with Big Alan a bit more, over the course of a season.
Well, it says here, Scott Gemmell, you played with him for two teams. Overall, 50,
as well.
50 matches altogether. Number two was Alan Troughton.
Oh, Trout's, great. Trout's a great player. Yeah, right, okay. Yeah.
46 games with him. Third one is Stevie Robertson, goalkeeper.
Oh, really? Right, okay.
35 games with him.
Is that right? I'm double checking that, by the way. I'll give you a good list. I'll give you a better list than that.
Simon Storey and then Scott McLaughlin.
Story and Scott McLaughlin. All right, okay, fair enough.
Every time you ask this question, mate, nobody gets it right. I don't think I know this player.
I'm questioning that. AI. That's AI.
Vala.
No, mate, you get all your stats, all the stats you want will be on transfermarket.com.
Okay.
And the last question is off there as well. Can you name the three players that you've used the most as a manager?
Jamie Walker.
Jamie Walker.
No,
Ross McNeil.
He's ninth.
Ninth.
Yep.
Ross McNeil.
Ross McNeil. No, he's not in there, mate. He's in the top 5 anyway.
Let me see. John Guthrie. 100%.
Number 1, yep. Number 1. 124 times you've used him.
Is that right? What a guy. He's a good player, by the way. Jack McDowell.
Jack McDowell. No.
Mark Kelly.
No.
I'm going to get this. So I'm thinking about my current team who was there for the very, very start.
There's one second who's like clearly second. John Guthrie's 124. Next one's 118.
Right.
Then it goes down to 96.
Played in that team. Oh my God. Let me think. That's where I thought maybe Jamie, but I thought Ross McNeil would have been there. He's been there for a while.
Oh, sorry, he has 4. He's 4th.
4th.
Yeah.
I know, Jamie, man, you're at it. Embarrassing.
Shut up.
Not Zach Butterworth. For
Do you want initials?
go on.
JB.
Jack Brown.
Yes.
No.
He's not having it.
118 appearances according to transfer market.
Is that right? Aye.
117 off the bench.
I can't lie, surely no.
See, John's been way for the start of the Braves, you know. John Guthrie. I had him at Motherwell years back, and he was very unfortunate not get a full-time deal at the time. But John has been there for the very start. So has Mark. So I'm surprised at that start. I'm going to check that. I'm going to speak to my data guy.
If it's wrong, they get him sued.
Yeah, make some money for him.
Right, Ricky, thanks very much for your time, mate. It's been a real pleasure listening to you, hearing all about your career and your plans for the future and that, mate. So thanks very much for coming on and giving your time, pal.
No worries. I appreciate it, guys. All the best. All right.
All the best. Cheers, Ricky.
Cheers, lads. Thank you.